Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're dialing in from. My name is Bas Kamphus. I work for Amazon Web Services, and together with Steve Jones. Steve, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Steve Jones, here at AWS. Here at AWS, I run our partner business focused on technical work with our partners, SAP obviously being one of our strong partners, and together with Boz.
Yes, so I am leading the strategic ISV workloads. Obviously, the topic today is SAP, and thank you guys for logging in or calling in. We're excited to kind of provide an update as to where we're going with our solutions around the SAP ecosystem, and look forward to talking to that. So with that, let's get started. Let's reflect a little bit on the history that we have with SAP, Steve.
That sounds great. So first, just kind of want to wind back the clock here a little bit. So we've been working with SAP for nearly 11 years now. They started with us first as a customer in 2008. Again, first foray into actually being able to support the SAP mission critical workloads on a hyperscale platform. And together, we broke a lot of glass. We learned a lot along the way. And this started with the certification of Business Suite back then on any database, being able to support ECC on databases such as DB2 and SQL Server and Oracle. And then obviously along the way here, SAP came out with their own in-memory database called HANA. And again, we worked with them as the first hyperscaler to be able to support that in-memory database. And along the way, as it moved from being able to support data mart workloads into Business Warehouse, and then finally into obviously Business Suite, and finally S4. Again, first along the journey there with them as they made this available in hyperscale platform. And this necessitated us to make some choices ourselves as a provider along the way based on customer requests. We actually decided to take a purposeful approach in how we actually build hardware and built specific instance families and types to support this mission critical workload. We'll talk a little bit about more what that means here later on in the webinar. But again, together with SAP, supporting customers' journey as well on this road or this journey. And as you can see, we depict here, early days. Customers were experimenting and moving test and dev systems, non-productive systems. But then early into the curve there, after certifying Business Suite, we had early adopters, customers who were ready to try running their mission critical workloads. And since then, again, we've been at this for 11 years. We've got thousands of customers running productive instances of SAP on us today. And many of those, enterprise customers running mission critical systems. And today, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but SAP themselves are actually going with a cloud first strategy and how they build and building their platform offerings on AWS with recent announcements like SAP Analytics Cloud, Data Warehouse as a Service, and HANA Cloud as well. So we're super excited to see what customers are doing with us, what SAP themselves are doing with us, and this is just the beginning. And so with that, what we wanted to do today is share a little bit about the platform, but also about what we see customers doing themselves as they make this journey.
Now, many customers ask us, right, with multiple providers in this space, ranging from traditional private cloud to public cloud, what is some of the difference between these cloud providers? And obviously, there are differences, and they're actually quite pronounced. Within AWS, we tend to really stay fairly close to our customers as they go through their SAP transformations. And from time to time, it starts with hosting very frequently, but what we see these days is there's a pedigree of customers that actually leverage AWS to innovate faster. It's one thing to focus on retired technical debt, which, as Steve alluded to, we've been doing for about 11 years, and there's differentiation there. But if you think about a Volkswagen, for instance, that is leveraging our IoT and machine learning services to dramatically reduce the cost of what it takes to produce a car, the angle is different. They choose a builder's platform, and they happen to have needs to connect and interoperate with SAP backbone solutions or SAP innovation solutions, right? So look at it as a Swiss Army knife. The Swiss Army knife, with the level of options and technologies, and obviously the pace of innovation that's coming out every day on the AWS platform, create kind of an everything cloud experience for our customers. And that becomes important, right? Because many customers are not merely getting their SAP system upgraded to a current version. They're looking for ways to differentiate on behalf of their stakeholders, their employees, their customers. And it becomes important that these solutions are well supported and are easy to interact with. So that's how we kind of look at our platform as a builder's platform versus merely a hosting platform. Now, with that, through the years, we've been serving many customers. As Steve alluded to on that roadmap, about 2 years ago at Sapphire, we shared that thousands of customers are deploying their mission-critical environments. A little bit over half is HANA. We see a lot of Oracle, DB2, and SQL workloads as well. But we also see a lot of the new SAP solutions being hosted on AWS. So some of the customers that you see here, for instance, Deutsche Bahn, the railway organization, started very early with an Oracle-based solution and is now using the services to actually create a better customer experience when it comes to running their trains on time. Recently, Lamborghini moved to their entire S4 wall-to-wall implementation in a mere 6 months, and we were able to actually share that with Jürgen Müller at the TechEd in Barcelona. We'll go deeper into some of these customer cases further on the deck. Steve, any specific customers that you want to highlight?
So some real fun ones here, right? Obviously, Bose, who has moved all of their SAP workloads into AWS, and is also, iterating on transforming, how they actually connect kind of the next generation technical solutions with these SAP platforms.
Yeah, if you think about their Quiet Comfort headphones, right, which is obviously a headphone that's connected to your mobile phone, and it gives you updates, and it supplies software updates to the headphone. That all runs on the IoT services of AWS, and so they actually create a competitive differentiator by combining the two.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say here too is that the customer adoption spans all industries and verticals, right? And customers of all different sizes, from very small customers to your largest enterprises running these mission critical workloads. So let's talk a little bit about kind of why that is. So ISG did a study for the 2 years in a row and named AWS as the leader in providing infrastructure for SAP workloads in HANA and the Leonardo in particular here, Leonardo ecosystem in particular, which of course means SAP Cloud Platform. And it wasn't just the infrastructure that we provide, it was also the partner network and the deep work that we do there and to enable SAP customers to make this transformative journey. And if you take a quick look here, this isn't just AWS, as it relates to other hyperscalers, but a long time incumbents around traditional hosting. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the underpinnings of the offering that we provide, which really make infrastructure decisions, which are typically long planning decisions in an SAP world, just so easy and able to actually change. We actually have some examples of customers who have gone into a project, Zappos, one of our own subsidiaries, who had actually planned on a particular footprint and database choice and decided to move to HANA kind of late in the game, and actually able to really quickly change their mind around the infrastructure footprint because they were actually leveraging our platform. So this is some of the agility that comes with customers being able to leverage our platform.
Yeah, so if you then kind of look at it, and we'll dive some deeper, but we just wanted to kind of highlight what the difference is, right? So AWS has provided a technology called Nitro that is You should see that as elastic metal, right? It allows you to get a true cloud experience, spinning up a system of 24 terabytes if you need to, in a matter of hours, and shutting it back down or resizing that within 5 minutes intervals, right? Where other cloud providers are still very much dependent on virtualization technology, we've actually innovated out of that barrier, and I'll let Steve talk more to it on the next slide. But with that, we're now able to provide 4 times the support in terms of size for HANA environments, up to 48 terabytes for S/4HANA, and up to 100 terabytes for the analytic workloads. We're also the platform where every SAP solution with every underlying database that SAP supports is supported on AWS. And this creates tremendous choice for customers, right? You saw that probably on the title slide. We see the AWS platform as a platform of choice. You can start with Oracle for whatever reason, migrate to Suite on HANA or to DB2, and from there start your S/4HANA journey. All of these solutions have multiple customers that actually have walked that journey before, and obviously the full support from SAP behind it. Then if we go to the lower left corner, SAP and AWS has been, to Steve's point, 11 years at it, but we are by and large the co-innovation partner for SAP. If you look at, for instance, Cloud Platform, it runs in 8 regions around the world, exclusively on AWS. It actually has at least 2 or 3 times the services per region compared to any other cloud provider, and therefore, again, provides customers choice as to which services they want to deploy where and how they differentiate their unique SAP footprint. Now, we're the only partner with a competency program of SAP for consulting partners. So what that means, and we'll talk a little bit about that, we actually audit our partners. We enable them, obviously, in certification processes, but we also check with customers if the partners are actually able to help them move faster. And then lastly, the AWS platform, as for the people that observe this, but in the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant, the AWS platform continues to extend its leadership across all services, across the global coverage that we provide, and that's certainly the case with SAP-specific services.
Excellent. So let's just dive into the platform for just a bit here. So Boz alluded to what we call the AWS Nitro system. And early on in the webinar, I spoke to a little bit about our journey, about how we took a look at how we actually engineer compute platforms, specifically for SAP. And so it was nearly 2-3 years ago. That's 3 years ago. We actually released our first ever cloud platform for SAP workloads based on a 4-socket design. This was still a virtualized system. And at that time, we actually started, interestingly, we had to work through some pretty significant scaling issues when you start looking at, virtualizing CPUs across 4 sockets, as well as that amount of RAM. And we were offering up to 4 terabytes of RAM at that point. And so we, again, made a purposeful decision there and challenged ourselves based on customer feedback to work towards a model where we wouldn't necessarily need to leverage virtualization. And so what we've been able to do now is take most of the functions which you see on the left, actually all the functions which you see on the left, which are typically handled by a hypervisor. Those are typically, again, I/O, network, and storage I/O, and build what we call the AWS Nitro system. And what this is, it's custom silicone put into a hardware offload card and put into our servers. And this card allows us to actually interact with the native AWS platform, whether that's a software-defined network, or what we call a virtual private cloud, or our Elastic Block Store volumes, which is our block storage, or our S3 storage, which is often used for data lake scenarios, or any other service. So think about customers who are, as Boz alluded to, are integrating IoT scenarios with their SAP systems. What this allows is for a customer to actually get a bare metal system for running SAP HANA, whether that's ECC on HANA or S/4HANA, fully integrated into the AWS native fabric. Where on some other, hosters or providers, you may actually have to go with a different architecture pattern depending on the size of system that you need. In fact, and it's super fascinating, right? We had a customer who was one of our first bare metal customers, and they were running on a virtualized 4 terabyte platform, and knew that they needed to migrate to a 6 terabyte platform. And we worked with them on working on a cutover plan. And it was so seamless, they were actually able to take a normal maintenance window and through a simple stop-start exercise, seamlessly migrate from a virtualized instance to a bare metal system in less than 2 hours. And I say less than 2 hours, it was actually a 15-minute exercise to move from virtual to bare metal, because all the necessary drivers which allow you to actually interact with the underlying platform are built into the operating system. The rest of the time is actually spent working through test scenarios. But it's super easy, as you can see, for customers to move back and forth from virtual to bare metal, and to, as Boz alluded, to be super elastic about how they approach this.
Yeah, and obviously on the right-hand side, you see a bit of a comparison. There's actually something that I think is increasingly important, and this is why we're so excited about this elastic metal solution, right? If you look at virtualization will inevitably take up some of the core and the CPU power, some of the memory, right? Which you see multiple cloud providers now claim that they have 12 terabytes. If you in fact look at the product availability matrix or the actual offering, you'll notice that it hovers about 11 and a half or often even below. That's because 500 gigabytes is used to virtualize, and therefore the performance also is not comparable. And that becomes important, right, for mission critical systems that you actually can address 100% of that system and get all the performance out of that system that you actually pay for. So expect more to come when it comes to the Nitro platform and elastic metal. Let's talk a little bit about the offerings that we are now able to support on that singular architecture, Steve.
Yeah, sure. So again, specifically for HANA, we support system sizes that range all the way from a quarter terabyte of RAM all the way up now to single instance sizes of 24 terabytes. And you can see here which ones, the ones we indicate as high memory instances, these are the bare metal instances with 6, 9, 12, and up to 24 terabytes of RAM. As Boz mentioned, we support very large S/4HANA deployments, also in a scale-out architecture, which can only be done leveraging bare metal appliances. So again, this is something that's also unique to AWS from a hyperscale perspective. You can't do that with virtualized systems. It's not supported by SAP. And then for large scale-out environments, again, the data mart scenarios and large BW environments, we support all the way out to 100 terabytes.
And as a result, let's talk a little bit more about SAP as obviously a provider of cloud services themselves, right? With the vast majority of them actually we work together on. So what we have today is obviously HANA Enterprise Cloud, has been supported on AWS for years. The US public sector is served through an entity called NS2 from SAP. Customers like the Navy, their SAP environment, which is quite substantial, are running on AWS through NS2. Cloud platform I alluded to is ultimately the layer of differentiation, if you will, right, where customers integrate their solutions and extend their ERP systems, CRM systems, BW systems that runs worldwide on the AWS. And then you get, of course, the true SaaS applications like Concur, SuccessFactors, and Qualtrics, all are in partnership with AWS available for customers. Now, what we introduced recently is a number of true platform as a service solutions that kind of indicate where the solution portfolio for SAP is going. Think about HANA as a service was released about 2 years ago. It was an interesting technology challenge as we containerized HANA and actually made it truly elastic and available as a service. That now has actually grown up as the HANA Cloud, which we introduced with Jürgen Müller at Tech in Barcelona. The data warehouse as a service, SAP Analytics Cloud are all renditions that use that same containerized technology to make SAP a lot more agile platform for the developer community and for the analytics community. Now, what we're super excited about is our collaboration on the IoT layer, where many providers are able now to connect two clouds together. We actually took it to the edge, and that is leveraging a technology called AWS Greengrass, which runs on the thing to actually become smart about the semantic data of the SAP asset that's actually representing the thing. So think about a scenario where a conveyor belt in a traditional architecture would convey all its vibration measurements to a cloud provider. And then if these vibration measurements exceed a certain threshold, there would be a signal back to an SAP core system. We're able actually with the edge-to-edge innovation to not convey those vibration measurements, but make the thing smart as to what the thresholds are. And as soon as it exceeds a threshold, it creates a maintenance order in SAP to have a service technician actually survey the piece of equipment. So very innovative, very relevant for manufacturers, oil and gas customers to actually figure out how they actually are going to create a smarter factory or produce a smarter product that learns as it matures. And then lastly, especially in EMEA, but worldwide, customers need additional controls in light of GDPR, in light of the sovereignty requirements. So we launched a solution called SAP Data Custodian that deals with everything like security key encryption, managing that into a vault, providing visibility to where in the world are your SAP solutions actually being accessed, and even data masking, right? If for whatever reason a US employee is not able to see customer names, you have now that ability to actually mask that if the user is logging in from a US location versus an EU country. So continue to innovate quick here and across a number of dimensions. And I just want to highlight that it has gone far beyond just infrastructure as a service, and truly, even for SAP, is a builder's platform. Now, with that, we serve SAP customers globally. Every region that SAP or that AWS provides services in, we have SAP customers, as you may expect. We have the full instance families available, but we also run SCP on these regions. And then within those regions, 10 out of the 12 hyperscale cloud regions that SAP actually runs on hyperscalers run on AWS. And in each individual region, you actually see 5 times the services available. So where cloud providers are still very much doing commodity services like Postgres databases and Open SQL, we actually support HANA Cloud, data warehouse as a service, interoperability extensions to integrate data lakes with SAP data, and are therefore a platform that allows people to innovate. Now let's talk a little bit more about what we hear from customers, right? The transformation journey that SAP is encouraging its customers to take is all centered around S/4HANA. But the true adoption of S/4HANA is not an easy hurdle. It comes at a significant risk as to what code will break as I go through this. There's certainly re-implementation activities associated, which obviously cost, and there is the history, right? In a survey that Resulting IT did on the left-hand side of this slide, asking SAP stakeholders, not merely IT, but also the business community that consumes SAP solutions, around the value or the plan or the budget, right? Were these things actually achieved as originally set out? In all categories, less than 50% actually had a positive response. And in that, with that history, to take on another large transformation to S/4HANA is not an easy decision. And we see that, right? In the ASOC Sapphire survey as to where customers are, 16% of the customers have a S/4HANA system live. That by no means their entire company is wall-to-wall S/4. A similar portion has started their journey, but the vast majority still has to get started. And then the most frequent reservations that are being mentioned is obviously the business case. If we're going to invest this much money and cause this much disruption, what is the end goal? Therefore, it's not yet a priority. In certain areas, S/4HANA is still maturing, and so certain industry solutions are not quite covered. And then there's a significant reservation around the cost and effort that is required to make this journey. And we work together with SAP as to how do we make this easier, right? Now, there's also a reality. SAP is a phenomenal platform, especially if we look at the suite solutions, to actually power business needs across the landscape. And so it does everything. But therefore you need a release pipeline, and you have some rigid scaling requirements, and it's certainly harder to adopt net new technologies in that solution stack. If you look at kind of the emerging architecture that came with hyperscale cloud, it's all about microservices. These microservices are molecules, if you were, in a broader system. It only does one thing, but it's very predictable what it needs to be fed and what it will actually produce as a result. So they can actually independently grow and evolve, and it makes it much smaller to manage change. So when we think about digital transformation, and that's probably a bit of an overused term, but in the context of SAP, we believe that you should see it in 3 layers, right? And no digital transformation project is all about an S/4 implementation or upgrade. There's other things that customers are trying to do. They're either trying to empower their sales teams or empower their employees, obviously intelligent decision-making, different ways of engaging with customers, right? Think about, for example, McDonald's and how they kind of modernize themselves with mobile technology to create a more holistic experience when you enter a McDonald's restaurant. All that stuff is running on AWS. Or on the flip side of it, customers are trying to, like Volkswagen, the example I introduced earlier, they're trying to produce at a lower cost or create products that improve as time moves on. Think about the Tesla car. Very much current priorities. Now, as you think about your SAP environment at that point in time, we encourage customers to break it down in 3 layers. First of all, obviously, the infrastructure layer. With the pace of innovation that the hyperscalers produce, I don't think any customer is well served creating their own infrastructure architecture anymore. And you want to consume the innovation that comes out of that. Think about network speeds, system sizes, system architectures. But you want to have that layer be super predictable, highly resilient, highly reserved, and ultimately built to last. Now, if you look at business applications, what we see is many customers are getting down to the clean core, right, which is often something SAP talks about. But there's a phenomenal value in these applications, but the more you customize them, the harder it becomes to actually consume that new technology. So we can encourage customers to get down to a clean core and build to consume. This is a layer that only occasionally needs to change. Now, the layer above it is where you differentiate, right? That should be a layer that is leveraging the microservices and is built to change. It is able to adapt to ever-changing business needs, and it can quickly connect from an IoT solution to a machine learning algorithm to a large data lake interoperability. And so we encourage customers to keep that clean core as the overarching message. Now, what we've seen is a lot of customers have a cloud-first strategy. Actually, the vast majority of the customers Steve and I meet with, for sure. But there is still a significant journey ahead. And Gartner kind of highlighted that one of the main inhibitors that customers are facing is the skills required to be successful in this journey. And so we as AWS, we've obviously, we created that competency a few years ago. We're working very closely with all of the large consulting partners and also the regional and local partners. We have a vibrant ecosystem of technology partners and hosting partners. But if you think about our partnership with Intel, which is also core to what we did with Elastic Metal, or our partnership with operating system providers and database providers to host these solutions, we recognize, though, that there is a journey ahead, and which is why we created technology to actually try and experiment with these SAP solutions before you get started. Now, a little bit more about that, right? So what SAP is obviously really focused on is enabling customers on a modern platform, S/4HANA, and that's been the focus. Now, in 2010, we started creating a set of technologies to allow customers to automate the lift and shift of an environment. And what we mean there is the database and the application doesn't dramatically change in this motion. And we see a lot of customers actually prefer to start there. Now, what we did in 2016, we introduced a methodology called FAST. What FAST did was basically break down SAP's migration tooling to make it possible to, within 2 days, 3 days, take an on-prem traditional database hosted mission-critical production system to AWS and actually test the impact, right? So Suite on HANA was one of the destinations. We have it for BW, we have it for ASE, and it allowed customers like Thermo Fisher or Amgen or Scott's Miracle-Gro to actually, before they started their HANA journey, to actually validate what that system would look like on the new database technology on a hyperscale cloud. It allowed them to, for instance, get real specific around what size they needed for the converted system, right, as one example. Now, 2 years ago, we released together with SAP the S4 Move experience. It leveraged the FAST technology, but actually made it possible to see your data, your traditional production data, supply chain data, chart of accounts on an S4 system. And so we automated what it took to go from on-premise to S4. Again, similar to FAST, and initially to experience it, get smart before you start the full journey. Now, what we've seen through the years is that most customers are actually preferring to take a two-step approach. They lift and shift right now in order to get the cost benefits and increase the agility and flexibility around their SAP estate. And then they're free to experiment with S4. Imagine if you're on a near infinite capacity hyperscale cloud, the ability to take a copy of production, upgrade it to S4 in a temporary environment, see what breaks or see what works and see what the business case is, became many, many times easier. What we also see is customers prioritize at that point in time that true digital transformation aspiration, right? And so in oil and gas, when you think about seismic data and the large image files that are running typically on a hyperscaler as well, integrating that back into a core SAP system. Or if you think about the IoT examples I used earlier with regards to connected devices and smarter factories, those become priorities as well. And we want to make sure that our consulting partners are able to actually help customers accelerate their ability to innovate there as well. Now, this is not, we've been doing this for a few years, so Steve, it would be kind of interesting to reflect on some of the things we've observed so far.
Yeah, just a few things to call out here, right? So, again, a large number of customers across, a different section of industries and verticals, right? So, something we learned really interestingly with this online retailer here, right? So, when they first went through this exercise, from a sizing perspective, they started based on traditional SAP system sizing, thinking they actually needed to size into a 1.5 terabyte HANA database from an infrastructure perspective. Going through this exercise allowed them to actually experience that they could actually make use of less than 1 terabyte. So they actually reduced the cost of the expected infrastructure by 50%. By actually just going through this exercise of this fast migration experience. You see some very large transformations or migrations, right? Big, large BW system, 25 terabyte system, multinational consumer goods that ended up on a 10 terabyte HANA environment, but able to move that in less than 29 hours, 42 hours, excuse me. And all types of workloads, right? Suite on HANA, as Boz was alluding to, right? Customers are actually moving what makes sense for them now, versus everybody just waiting to move to S4. So you see Suite on HANA here, BW movements, S4 movement as well, and it's pretty exciting to see what customers are doing. And with that, let's dive into just a few customer examples.
Yeah, BP was a very early adapter of cloud technologies. They specifically, I think initially, Ed, who is running the SAP application for Steve Fortune, it initially started with a TCO proposition. Actually, Ed was with us at Sapphire and shared that the cost of an SAP system and any application server in his environment was thousands of dollars with this traditional provider, and moved it to a matter of under $100 per service over a month. And so it started with a TCO objective, but as a result, they were able to actually dramatically improve the speed in which IT was able to serve the business community. So a funny thing to note is that they initially set out to a full migration over a period of 3 years, but as they migrated a number of their SAP solutions to AWS, they reduced the time that it took to migrate them to 18 months. Obviously, 7,000 servers are moved, as the slide predicts, and 3,000 applications are being moved. I think they're actually reaching the end of that transformation as we speak. So a huge step forward in increasing the agility and flexibility of these systems, as well as accelerate their ability to innovate. And we're doing a lot of interesting projects with BP.
And AIG is an interesting one as well, right? As many of you probably know, they're a leading global insurance organization, highly regulated. They were looking to improve their end customers' experience, but also from an integration with an SAP systems, right? They wanted to improve their speed to market with new offerings, improve operational stability and security, and address some challenges they had in the disaster recovery space. And so we worked with them through, again, through our fast migration program to give them some experience of what a migration would look like, as well as just the speed at which it could be done, because there were some questions about how real that was, right? So together, working with them, they were able to move 13 productive landscapes in a 13-month time frame, right? They saved around $8 million from internal hosting costs to moving to AWS. They saw a 40% improvement in their batch runtime by running on AWS, and reduced their total database footprint size by 71%. They ended up also, and the boss is super excited to move on to the next one, to a near zero DR footprint, and now have a multi-regional DR set up leveraging the AWS platform. The interesting thing here too is they were able to they went through an incremental approach where they would move one productive landscape and then move on to the next one over a 13-month period. They took the savings from one migration and funded the next migration in a very quick fashion.
That's actually a key point, right? That's why we see, I think, the lift and shift still being a very popular way to actually collect the savings in order to innovate as well. It's partly technical. It's probably very, very much a technical priority. But as a result, you start self-funding the next step of that journey. And so Engie was more the typical S/4HANA transformation. It was was a great customer engagement. Engie is based out of France, a major technology provider, or a major utility provider, I should say, in Europe. And so Engie was on a 4-year S4 digital transformation that went far beyond just the S4 implementation, but also creating ultimately a leadership position in the energy decarbonization transition that industry is going through. As a result, the board actually looked at the platform technology roadmap and said, okay, I like all this, but I really cannot take 4 years. We need to go faster. We need to actually get this done within a 24-month time frame. So we got engaged. We were able to provide them their S4 HANA environment that same week. We flew. I was in Paris by coincidence and actually flew into their offices. And before I left the meeting, they already were up and running on their S4 environment. And they reduced their implementation timeline by 50%. They also reduced their infrastructure cost as a result by 50%, and are experiencing currently a 10x ROI on just automating on that platform. Now, we're going to be at reInvent and many sessions. reInvent is kind of the AWS customer convention in Las Vegas the week after Thanksgiving for the American attendees today. Many sessions in which customers are going to share their experiences on the platform, and which will introduce some new capabilities that are coming out. We're actually quite excited about some of the progress we're making beyond the infrastructure offerings to also help customers manage these environments and build on top of these environments. We'll open up for some questions. Some key things to keep in mind as we leave you today. It is super fast. We've done a lot of automation. We have a thing called Quick Starts that allow you to establish your S4 HANA environment in less than 2 hours. We talked about the migration tooling, allowing you to actually experience your data in an S4 HANA environment within days. We have a broad community of competency partners able to help you get started or take you all the way to the conversion. And we have solution spaces to further accelerate your ability to get value out of these environments on AWS.
So there are a number of questions here, Boz. We have time for a few here. I'm going to consolidate some into some general themes. So there was a question around AWS providing hosting services as part of Nitro, or just in general, as part of migration services or other related offerings.
Yeah, so the way we are organized is we provide the technical hosting services to our customers. And you saw on the last slide, Quick Starts is a quick way to establish that. And then we provide a number of management tools around this. But the true traditional hosting, like you do with some of our partners like T-Systems or Capgemini, IBM, Cognizant, they provide the additional managed service provider services on patching SAP systems, helping you with the upgrades, providing user access to these systems. That is kind of what these partners do, and they've extended a large sum of automation around these environments as well, so that these cloud attributes are actually extended to you.
Okay, excellent. Obviously, questions around the webinar being made available.
Absolutely.
We'll do that afterwards.
Yeah, the webinar will be made available for replay.
All right, excellent. Question here around, we talk about performance. Are there cross-cloud performance comparison tests?
There are. They're actually the leading performance benchmarks are the SD benchmark that SAP publishes. So that's actually from SAP themselves. So it's absolutely a benchmark that you can trust. As we indicated, AWS currently offers twice the performance of the next provider. not to speak ill of our competition, but it's really noticeable that two providers are not even publishing performance benchmarks as well. So I just would caution customers to really look into that.
Last question related to the recent announcement around Embrace. What is AWS's perspective on Project Embrace? So I'm happy to take that.
You start.
Sure. So if you look back at Sapphire, we actually, together with SAP and a number of other hyperscalers, indicated that we were working together on this particular program. And since then, obviously, there have been multiple announcements. For us, it comes down to providing customers choice and what it is that they want. What we hear from customers is that, in some cases, an S/4HANA migration, as well as SAP Cloud Platform, is right for them, and we support them and have customers who have done that. Many customers we talk to are telling us that business case just isn't there quite yet. So we are obviously working with them to do what's right for them, and that's kind of how we look at things, right? We'll support a customer and meet them wherever their needs are, whether that's an S/4HANA migration or lift and shift of an ECC system to AWS. Paul, anything to add?
Yeah, no, we're still obviously partnering very much with SAP and helping customers daily with their S4 journey. We will continue to do that, but we do believe that the customers have many choices, and as we've experienced over the last 11 years, each customer's journey is fairly unique when it comes to their technology roadmap and what they're trying to achieve through this digital transformation disruption that's happening right now in the industry. And so we'll continue to support SAP S4 customers, SAP Suite on HANA customers, as well as the traditional databases. Obviously, Cloud Platform runs on AWS today and will continue to run and be globally available, and we are continuing to innovate, and we'll have some exciting announcement at reInvent. So as we reach the end of our webinar, I want to thank everybody for joining today. We'll be at reInvent. We would be excited to actually talk deeper and answer more specific questions. We'll also be at the summits around the world. The AWS Summits is a great environment to actually get connected with AWS or a partner and explore your roadmap. And with that, I wish everybody a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you.